The galaxy was vast, filled with thousands of worlds, and Earth was nothing more than a small blue dot on its outer edge. For centuries, no one in the great civilizations of the stars had given it a second thought. It was too far from the central trade routes, too quiet, too primitive to matter. But that changed on the day a mining drone belonging to the Vectron Empire disappeared near the edge of the solar system. At first, the loss was ignored. Mining drones vanished, often lost to cosmic storms, pirates, or simple mechanical failure. Yet when the Vectron salvage team arrived to investigate, they found something impossible. The drone's remains were scattered across the void, shredded and burned in ways no known weapon in the sector could achieve. And in the final seconds of the drone's damaged data core, there was a single blurry image, metallic shapes rising from a pale blue planet, missiles streaking upward, fire blooming in the blackness of space. Inside the Great Council Chamber, on the world of Arachentar, the incident was brought before the leaders of 12 powerful empires. They gathered beneath towering holograms of stars and war records, their voices low but tense. Earth appeared as a small, harmless-looking orb in the center of the chamber, yet the image of the destroyed drone hung beside it like a warning. Council's military strategists studied the data with disbelief. The weapons used were crude by galactic standards kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, but the way they were deployed was alarming. The attack had been sudden, unhesitating, and perfectly timed to catch the drone off guard. No warning, no negotiation, just destruction. One ambassador leaned forward and said in a quiet, almost fearful voice, they didn't hesitate because they didn't need to think. This was instinct. That was when the council agreed. The species on that blue planet needed to be studied, possibly contained. From the moment the order was given, the Vectron fleet prepared what they called a testing mission. It would not be a war, at least not officially. A small group of ships, armed but not at full strength, would enter the human system and provoke a reaction. They wanted to see how Earth would respond, how quickly it could mobilize, and whether the destruction of the mining drone had been a lucky strike or the sign of something more dangerous. The Vectron admiral in charge of the mission believed it would be simple. In the eyes of the galaxy, humans were a young species, barely stepping into space with fragile stations and outdated propulsion. Against the precision and speed of an advanced fleet, they would crumble. The admiral's report promised that within one planetary cycle, they would have all the data they needed to decide Earth's fate. On Earth, no one had the faintest idea they were being watched. Life moved on, as usual. Cities thrummed with noise, the internet buzzed with rumors of UFOs, and scientists argued about the possibility of alien life. The first sign came as a faint blip on a classified radar screen in a military station buried deep in the Nevada desert. An operator frowned at the strange readings. The object was moving too fast for a meteor, too high for an aircraft, and its trajectory was unlike anything he'd seen. Hours later, similar blips appeared on defense satellites, tracking something slipping into the outer edges of the system. Governments scrambled in secret meetings, unsure if they were witnessing a breakthrough in foreign technology or something else entirely. When the first blurry images came through, sleek, blade-like shapes drifting in the blackness, there was no longer any doubt. They were not from Earth. The Vectron fleet moved with calculated precision, scanning human communications, mapping military networks, and observing defense systems. They didn't attack. Not yet. Their mission was to push, to probe, to force Earth to reveal its teeth. But what they didn't expect was how quickly humans would bear them. The moment the strange objects were confirmed as hostile Earths, nations often divided, often slow to act, responded with startling speed. Military satellites switched into combat mode. Submarines surfaced in the middle of oceans to launch missiles into orbit. Civilian spacecraft were ordered to land, while orbital stations prepared emergency protocols, and deep inside hidden military bunkers, a plan was activated that had been waiting for decades, a plan designed for the day humanity finally met something it could not understand. The first engagement happened without warning. A Vectron scout ship, drifting near the moon, intercepted a simple human signal, a greeting, in English, broadcast in all directions. The alien captain allowed the message to play, curious about what these primitive beings would say. Through the transmission, the signal shifted. It wasn't a greeting at all. It was a targeting code. Moments later, a swarm of projectiles erupted from the far side of the moon, guided by computers that had been tracking the ship for hours. The alien crew reacted instantly, maneuvering to avoid impact, but the weapons were not aimed to destroy. They were aimed to blind. Explosions ripped across the hull, shattering sensors and severing comms. By the time the captain regained control, the ship's systems were crippled. It was forced to retreat without firing a single shot in the Galactic Council chamber. The first reports from the testing fleet caused silence. The humans had not only detected the fleet, they had engaged it in a way no advanced species would have considered. The weapons were brutal, the tactics unpredictable, and the willingness to strike without negotiation was something that made even the most warlike council members uneasy. An analyst summed it up in one sentence: they fight like they don't. No, they're supposed to lose. And that, more than anything, was what made Earth dangerous. Council had wanted answers, and now they had them. With those answers came a far more troubling question: what would humanity do next? The Vectran admiral did not like the word retreat. In the proud history of his fleet, it had been spoken only a handful of times, and never because of a primitive species. Yet the scout ship's crippled state was undeniable, its damage, a silent insult drifting in the void. In the debrief chamber aboard the flagship, the alien officers stood around a glowing projection of Earth, their faces hard with disbelief. It was an accident, one argued. They didn't know what they were doing. But others disagreed. The humans had struck with intent, with accuracy, and with a level of coordination that suggested preparation. That was the first crack. In the fleet's confidence, the first time they considered that maybe their prey was not as blind as it looked. The Council's instructions had been clear: observe, provoke, and test. But pride was a dangerous thing, and the Vectran admiral's pride had already been wounded. He ordered the fleet to advance deeper into the system, moving past Mars, past the asteroid belt, their black, blade-like ships sliding into Earth's shadow. In their minds, they were still in control. The humans had only damaged a scout, not destroyed it. This was still just a game of testing boundaries. But what the admiral did not realize was that his fleet had just made its first mistake, crossing a line. Humanity had drawn long ago, a line they never allowed anyone to cross. On Earth, the emergency meetings were no longer about what was out there, but about how to deal with it. In a fortified room beneath the Pentagon, military leaders from multiple nations studied real-time feeds of the alien ships. They saw the fleet's formation change as it entered the inner system, its path tightening toward Earth. Every expert in the room knew this was no longer a reconnaissance mission, it was preparation for something more. The president's voice was calm but cold as she addressed the generals. They have entered our neighborhood. We will not leave it without a message they will never forget. And with that, a plan called Protocol Eclipse was approved. The first move of Eclipse was not an attack, but a disappearance. Entire sections of the human defense network went dark, satellites stopped transmitting, radar systems shut off, even communication relays went silent. From the aliens' perspective, it looked as if Earth's defenses were collapsing. What they didn't know was that those systems weren't failing. They were hiding, buried beneath the surface of the oceans. Hidden in deep mountain silos and cloaked within orbital debris fields, weapons began to come alive. The humans were creating the illusion of weakness, drawing the fleet in closer, luring them to a place where escape would be difficult. The Vectran fleet took the bait. Their sensors swept the silent zones, searching for signs of resistance, but found nothing. The admiral assumed that the earlier attack on the scout ship had been the humans' only real defensa, lucky shot from a handful of hidden weapons. He decided it was time to test Earth's reaction to something more aggressive. A command was given, and one of the smaller frigates broke formation. Descending toward the upper atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean, its orders were simple: skim the planet's skies, map its surface in detail, and if possible, disrupt communications by burning through key satellite clusters. It was still not an outright attack, but it was close enough. The frigate never made it home. As it dipped into the atmosphere, its sensors picked up strange metallic reflections, far below tiny shapes, scattered across the ocean's surface, barely visible against the waves. The alien captain dismissed them as harmless debris. Then, without warning, the sea erupted. Hidden submarines launched a swarm of projectiles into the sky, their contrails twisting like serpents toward the alien ship. The captain reacted instantly, dodging and weaving, but the humans had planned for this. Each projectile was not a missile, but a decoy bait to force evasive maneuvers. And just as the ship banked hard to avoid them, a weapon fired from the far side of the planet, a massive railgun hidden inside a disguised cargo platform. Traveling at several kilometers per second, the slug tore through the frigate's hull. Before the crew even realized it was coming, the ship exploded in a silent bloom of fire and shattered metal, its pieces raining into the ocean. When the news reached the Vectron admiral, the room went quiet. 2 encounters, 2 losses, neither on the humans' home turf, neither in what should have been a fair fight. And yet the humans had struck with precision each time. It was then that a quiet, unsettling thought began to spread among the crew. The humans weren't simply defending themselves. They were studying the aliens just as the aliens had come to study them. But unlike the Vectron fleet, humanity wasn't just observing from a distance. They were taking things apart. Piece by piece, learning how their enemy worked far above Earth, in the cold shadows of space. Another trap was already being set. And the aliens, still convinced they were the hunters, were walking straight into it. The loss of the frigate had shaken the Vectron fleet, but pride was a stubborn shield. The admiral refused to call for reinforcements. To him, doing so would signal weakness, not just to the humans, but to the other powers of the galaxy who were watching from the shadows. The fleet adjusted its formation again, moving in tighter, their sleek black holes reflecting the faint light of the distant sun. They were closer to Earth than ever now, close enough that the blue planet filled their primary view screens, its cloud layers swirling over the continents below. To the Vectron crew, it still looked fragile, unarmored. The alien warriors could not see the invisible nets being drawn around them, nor the silent watchers hidden among the stars. In the darkness beyond the moon's far side, a new shape stirred. At first glance, it looked like just another asteroid, slowly tumbling through space. But inside its hollowed core were hundreds of human operators, staring at glowing tactical maps. The station codenamed Blacklight had been dormant for years, a last resort platform meant to be used only if an extraterrestrial force breached Earth's defenses. Today, it woke. Its hidden thrusters rotated the massive rock until its disguised weapon arrays were perfectly aligned with the alien fleet's flank. The humans didn't intend to fire yet. Instead, Blacklight began transmitting faint, carefully distorted signals toward deep space. It was a mimicry of the Vectron fleet's own encrypted chatter, an imitation so convincing that even advanced sensors would struggle to tell the difference. In short, the humans were planting seeds of mistrust-making. It looked as though the fleet's own ships were whispering secrets to the enemy. Meanwhile, deep in the Pacific, another layer of the trap was forming. The oceans hid not just submarines, but something the aliens had no reason to expect: orbital insertion torpedoes. These massive, sub-launched weapons could silently climb out of the sea and into low orbit without using traditional rocket signatures. Once there, they could drift for hours, disguised as chunks of dead satellites. The human plan was simple. When the alien fleet passed through a particular corridor between Earth and the Moon, the torpedoes would ignite all at once, striking from below while Blacklight struck from above. The fleet wouldn't have time to react. They would be inside a kill zone it never saw coming. The humans weren't relying on brute force. They knew the Vectrons were technologically superior in certain areas: shielding, faster-than-light navigation, deep space communication. What humanity excelled at, however, was adaptability. In war, the humans had always found ways to turn scraps into weapons, to make the environment itself a threat. This time, the entire solar system was their battlefield. Every moon, asteroid, and hidden satellite was part of the plan. They were patient hunters. The aliens had unknowingly stepped into the snare. The Vectron admiral still believed he was pressing the advantage. After the loss of the frigate, he authorized measured aggression, a slow, creeping approach toward Earth's orbit, probing for defenses while preparing for a decisive show of force. He ordered a pair of cruisers to flank around the moon, intending to catch Earth's hidden weapons from behind. But in doing so, he unknowingly sent them straight toward Blacklight. The human operators watched the alien ships drift closer, their sleek forms cutting through the black void. At precisely the right moment, the asteroid's weapon bays unfolded like the petals of some mechanical flower, and the guns whispered. To life, they didn't fire directly at the cruisers instead. They targeted small debris fields near the ships. The impact sent clouds of razor-sharp fragments scattering at high speed. To the aliens, it looked like a natural hazard, but in reality, every shard was precisely calculated to hit key sensors and external systems. Within minutes, both cruisers were blind. Their long-range targeting arrays went dark, forcing them to retreat back toward the main fleet. The admiral was furious, but still, he did not call for a full withdrawal. This was the second mistake. Pride had turned the hunter into prey, and the noose was tightening. On Earth, the war room tracked every movement. The president leaned over the table, her eyes fixed on the live feed of the fleet's formation. They still think they're in control, she said quietly. A general nodded. They'll know soon enough. Outside, the skies over key cities were eerily clear. Civilian aircraft had been grounded, and much of the world's power grid was operating in blackout mode. The world was holding its breath, waiting for the moment the trap would close. Far above, the alien fleet began to pass through the narrow corridor between Earth and the moon. Below them, the silent torpedoes floated in the shadows. Above them, Blacklight's guns were locked in place. Across the planet, hidden command centers waited for the final word. When it came, it was a single calm message: initiate eclipse. The order rippled through hidden channels, traveling faster than any radio signal the Vectrans could detect. From the depths of the Pacific, the first torpedo broke the surface in total silence. Its hull glistened under the faint light of the moon as it clawed its way into the black sky, riding an invisible arc of compressed magnetic force. It made no roar, no trail of fire, a faint shimmer before disappearing into orbit. Then came the next and the next, until dozens were rising. From every ocean on Earth, to an outside observer, it might have looked like the planet itself was waking, sending its weapons upward like a forest sprouting deadly seeds. The alien fleet, still gliding in formation, noticed faint anomalies on their lower sensors. They dismissed them as debris, or harmless satellites right up until the first torpedo activated. A sudden spike in thermal readings lit their displays. The Vectran admiral's voice barked orders to deploy countermeasures, but the torpedoes weren't coming in straight lines. They darted and curved through space, using unpredictable magnetic bursts to dance past the fleet's defenses. The aliens had fought disciplined enemies before. They had never fought chaos like this. Above the fleet, Blacklight came alive. The disguised asteroid's panels peeled back, revealing rail cannons the size of buildings. A fraction of the speed of light, guided by quantum-linked targeting arrays, the shots didn't aim for the alien ship's thickest armor. They struck weak-point sensor domes, maneuvering thrusters, shield generators. The first impact tore through a destroyer's side, its shields flickering before going dark. Next shot crippled a battleship's main engine, leaving it spinning slowly. Helpless in the void, from Earth's surface, civilians could see nothing but streaks of light in the night sky. To them, it was silent. Out there, it was chaos. The aliens' tight formation began to fracture as captains tried to dodge incoming fire. Every evasive move pushed them deeper into the trap. The humans had predicted this exact pattern, and the torpedoes adjusted accordingly, weaving into new attack vectors. One by one, alien ships suffered crippling hits, not all destroyed, but all wounded. In space combat, a wounded ship was often as good as dead. The admiral finally saw it. This wasn't a simple ambush, it was an execution. The humans hadn't merely defended their home. They had built an invisible killing ground that turned every advantage the Vectrans thought they had into a liability. The corridor between the Earth and Moon, which had seemed like the perfect staging area, was now a cage with walls of steel and light. The Vectrons tried to break upward, to punch through the top of the trap, but Blacklight's upper guns rained kinetic death on them. They tried to dive toward Earth's atmosphere, but the torpedoes hunted them like wolves, striking from the blind spots of their shields. And then, as if to drive the point home, Earth itself joined the fight. The planet's vast network of orbital satellites, most of them disguised as harmless communication arrays, suddenly powered up. Thousands of micromissiles erupted from them, swarming like a cloud of mechanical hornets. They didn't carry enough firepower to destroy capital ships, but they shredded exposed hulls, overloaded shield systems, and blinded targeting sensors. It was the final push that turned the alien retreat into a rout. Ships that could still move began to flee, breaking formation entirely. The once proud Vectran fleet was now a scattering of crippled vessels, each limping toward the safety of deep space. Behind them, the wrecks of their fallen burned silently, fragments of alien technology tumbling toward Earth's gravity well. Some would fall into the oceans. Others would be quietly collected by human recovery teams. Nothing would be wasted. In the war room, the president's voice was calm but firm. Do not chase them. Let them run. The generals obeyed, though. Some looked like they wanted to finish the job. The truth was, the message had already been sent. Earth had revealed just enough power to terrify, just enough restraint to make the galaxy wonder what else humanity might be hiding. As the last of the alien ships vanished into the darkness, the skies above Earth returned to their deceptive calm. The civilians would never know the full extent of what had just happened. The history books would record it simply as the Battle of the Moon's Shadow. But in the quiet corners of the galaxy, among the hidden watchers and rival powers, the whispers had already begun. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time. The news traveled faster than light. Not in the literal sense, no. The physics still held, but in the way secrets always move through those who should never have known them in the first place. In the outer colonies of the Drelva Consortium, whispers spread before the last Vectran ship even limped home, by the time the battered survivors reached their own territory. The story had already reached the trading hubs of 6 other species. It was no longer just a military defeat. It was a legend being born in real time, in the high council chambers of the Therum Empire. A room carved entirely from black crystal, the Emperor's advisors argued in hushed, sharp tones. The Vectrons were supposed to be the galaxy's second strongest military power. If they could be driven off with such precision and coordination, what did that say about Earth? The Therum had always dismissed humanity as an underdeveloped frontier species interesting. Enough for cultural exchange, not worth the trouble of military engagement. Now, some of the advisors were calling that a fatal miscalculation. Others insisted it was a trap that Earth had shown only a fraction of its power to provoke fear without revealing its limits. That uncertainty was what made them dangerous. Far across the void, in the lawless trade station of Kale's Gate, mercenaries and smugglers huddled in dim cantinas, watching blurry recordings of the battle stolen from Vectron sensor feeds. The footage was incomplete, just flashes of light, torpedoes darting like predators, and alien ships breaking apart, but it was enough to spark dangerous curiosity. Private fleets began asking questions about how to get their hands on human weapons. Weapons dealers started offering ridiculous sums for even the smallest piece of wreckage that might have fallen from orbit. Meanwhile, in the hidden council of the collective worlds, paranoia bloomed like a disease. The collective prided itself on knowing the true military strength of every member and every rival. But somehow Earth had concealed all of this. Either their spies were incompetent, or humanity had a mastery of secrecy no one had seen in centuries. That possibility terrified them more than the weapons themselves. After all, a strong enemy could be beaten with stronger firepower. But an unpredictable enemy? That was a nightmare no one could plan for. In the Vectran capital, the mood was darker still. The surviving captains delivered their reports with shame, some avoiding the gaze of the high command entirely. The admiral who had led the fleet insisted they had been lured into a perfect kill zone, and that no known fleet could have survived. Yet his words did not save him. By the end of the day, he and several officers had been removed from duty, replaced by younger, more aggressive commanders. Revenge, the Vectran War Council decided, would come swiftly, though even they knew that. To attack again so soon would risk total annihilation. Back on Earth, the halls of power were quieter, but no less tense. The president sat with the Joint Chiefs, reviewing intercepted alien transmissions. Some species were calling for an alliance with humanity. Others were pushing for preemptive strikes before Earth's influence spread. Still others wanted to open trade immediately, hoping that commerce might buy them protection. Every move from here on would have consequences that reached far beyond the solar system. For the first time, humanity wasn't just part of the galaxy, it was a force shaping it. The most secret conversation, however, happened in a sealed bunker beneath the Nevada desert. Their leaders of Earth's shadow organizations, the ones who had built Blacklight, who had hidden weapons in orbit and under the oceans, gathered to discuss what came next. One thing was clear. The reveal of Earth's power had been only the first step. It was bait. And judging by the speed at which the galaxy was reacting, the trap was already working. Soon, humanity would know exactly which alien powers feared them, which wanted to use them, and which would come hunting in the dark. And so far from the public eye, Earth began its next move not to defend, but to prepare for something larger. Something no one in the galaxy would see coming. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy seemed to tilt on its axis. Old alliances cracked under the weight of new fear. Warships quietly shifted their patrol routes closer to human borders, not to attack, but to watch. Trade fleets that once bypassed Sol now began accidental stops at human-controlled stations, each bringing carefully chosen diplomats in the hope of reading Earth's intentions. Yet, beneath the smiles and exchanged gifts, every handshake carried the same silent question. Are you a threat or an opportunity? Humanity did not answer. That was the plan. While the galaxy debated in its council halls and trading ports, Earth's leaders moved in absolute silence. Hidden orbital yards expanded production of warships sleek. Black vessels with no registered ID built from alloys no alien scanner had yet identified. Deep in the Pacific, under layers of ice and salt water, autonomous factories began manufacturing weapons in secret quantities. No press releases, no announcements only. The quiet hum of preparation, far beyond the solar system. Humanity's Black Ops fleets were already moving. Small, cloaked vessels slipped through alien trade routes, planting listening devices on communication hubs, mapping defense grids, and quietly sabotaging weapons depots. None of the targets knew they had been touched, not yet. Earth had learned one truth from its long history. The best wars are won before the first shot is fired. In the sprawling markets of Zereth Prime, merchants whispered of ghost fleets that were seen for an instant and then gone, ships that left no heat signatures and no ion trails. On the icy moon of Halver, a mining crew claimed they were hailed by a human voice in their coms, though no human ships had ever visited the system. Most dismissed these as rumors, but the ones who believed began to prepare escape plans. Inside the Vectran War Council, the tension was unbearable. Pride demanded they retaliate. But intelligence reports told a more dangerous story. Human ships had been sighted in systems far from Sol. Observing, scanning, learning, the Vectrans realized something the rest of the galaxy had not yet dared to say. A loud Earth was not merely defending itself. It was expanding, slowly, silently, and with terrifying precision. Back on Earth, the president stood alone in the situation. Staring at a holographic map of the Milky Way, dozens of points of light marked human fleet movements, each a spark in the darkness. The map was not shown to the public. Most citizens still thought the battle with the Vectrons was a one-time victory, an act of defense. They had no idea their species was already playing a game of galactic chess on a scale no one had attempted. In centuries, in the Nevada bunker, the Shadow Council reviewed the final stage of their plan. The galaxy's eyes were on Earth now exactly as intended. But what no one outside the bunker understood was that the recent show of power had been nothing more than an opening move. The true weapons had not yet been revealed. The true fleets had not yet left dock. And the true goal was still hidden behind classified seals that even most world leaders had never seen. The meeting ended with no applause. No speeches, only a single order, spoken in a voice that carried no emotion. Begin Phase 2. Far away in the cold dark, between stars, a fleet of ships without names or transponders came to life. Engines flared for the first time. Silent codes were transmitted. And somewhere on a distant, unmarked planet, a beacon activated a signal aimed not at Earth's enemies, but at an unknown destination beyond the galaxy's edge. The galaxy believed Earth was the storm. They were wrong. Earth was only the first drop of rain,